Welcome to Rise Up in Business, the law podcast for small business owners. This podcast is designed to share important legal information without the stuffy legal jargon. I'm Tracy Milacrane. Let's get into today's episode. Hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of the Rise Up in Business podcast for 2023. Oh, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'll know that I love the start of anything new, whether it's a new day, a new week, a new month. So you can imagine how much I love the start of a new year. In today's episode of the podcast, I wanted to share some thoughts with you around a topic that I, for many years, found really confronting. And it wasn't until I unpacked why I found that confronting and learned that it really doesn't have to be, that I started making real inroads into certain areas in my business. And that topic is ego. Ego traditionally has a negative connotation. And I think for me, that comes from my traditional law practice background where it's very, let's call it male dominated, but it is very egocentric. And I think to some extent it needs to be, because a lot of the work that's done in that space is advocacy in court, and there needs to be a desire to win, and there needs to be a desire to not only achieve the best possible outcome for your client, but to beat your opponent. I'll just be really honest about it. It exists, it's there, and I think certainly at the top level that I worked with some of the country's leading barristers and senior counsels, that ego was necessary in order to have that drive. It's not always a bad thing, not even in legal practice, and certainly it wasn't back then. Sometimes it was irritating. I found that sometimes the ego drove behaviour and there was no basis for it. But with the calibre of counsel that I was working with in my career, certainly the ego was there, the arrogance was there, but the confidence overrode all of that in many respects because they had the goods to back it up. They were that good. So I could forgive that negative connotation around ego back then because it served a purpose. Now, operating in the small business space in my business, I query whether ego has a place. And ego to me now takes on a different meaning than what it used to in the earlier days in my practice career. Now, ego to me means when you're not aligned, in your not self, to use the human design speak. If you've been listening to me for a while, you'll know that I have a keen interest in human design. I'm a projector. And for me, my not self, meaning when I'm not in alignment, is when my ego kicks in and when I'm feeling bitter. And for all of our designs, when we're in our ego is when we're in our not self, meaning we're not aligned and we're not at our best. So what does that mean when we are preparing to start a new year in our business? What do we do with our ego? Does it have a place? Is it even something we need to be thinking about? And honestly, my answer is yes. I think it does have a place in the context that we need to think about it. So when we think about how we want to be our best selves going forward into this amazing new year in business, what does that mean for our attitude and our ego? And then by extension, what does that mean for our schedule? And I'll explain why I think that's important. We live in a digital age which it's so easy to be surrounded all the time with noise and distractions, particularly with social media. I've learned the hard way the importance of switching off and learning how to not be distracted by social media and getting caught up in all the noise and all the things of all the people in their businesses and what they're doing. For me, I learnt that it was my ego that would cause me to go into overwhelm when I would see so many people doing so many things and I thought, gosh, I need to be doing all the things as well or else I'm not doing enough. I'm never doing enough and I need to hustle and I need to be doing more. And oh, there's something new on social media. I need to be doing that too. When I learnt to block out that noise and to rely on my anchor in my business, which is my why. I'm very much anchored to my why in business. And I learnt not to be distracted. That's when I realised that that was my ego that was stepping in, saying to me, Tracy, you need to be doing all the things. You're not doing enough. But once I blocked that noise out and once I was able to be aligned, I realised I don't need to be doing all the things. They're not all aligned with me. They're not consistent with my purpose. They don't serve my business. So I was able to get crystal clear clarity on what did serve my business and focus on that. And so what I want to share with you today, coming into this new year, is the importance to allow ourselves some space as business owners to reflect and go back regularly to our why and to the things that serve our business the most, because it's not all the things. And when we're in our ego, that's when the uncertainty and doubt kicks in my experience, both personally, but also working with so many small business owners. So we need to adjust, I think, our attitudes to that and pop our ego aside. And the way we do that, I think, is by staying aligned. This is my personal experience. It may not resonate with you. You might find other ways to allow your ego to step to the side. Whatever that might be for you, I think it's important that we allow ourselves time to remind ourselves of those things so that we can stay anchored to our why in business, and so we can stay focused on the things that we know serve our business the best. Similarly, once we come back into a new year and we're generally refreshed and recharged, we generally have some new vibrant energy and we've got a renewed sense of drive and purpose in our business. It's very easy, from what I've seen over the years working with small business owners, for that to become derailed and for our schedules to be overflowing and for us to lose that sense of control that we have over our calendar and our planning. And I can't help but wonder whether the ego has a part to play in that too. When we start thinking that we're not doing enough, we need to be saying yes to everybody, we need to be doing more, and we need to be doing all the things. So I see a correlation, and I see them going hand in hand, that once our ego kicks in, we want to be doing more, we want to be doing all the things, our schedules then pay the price of that, and then by extension, so do we as business owners, and it has a ripple effect. So the message I would love to be your takeaway from this episode is to remind ourselves gently, with kindness, to put our egos to the side, starting this new year in business. Allow ourselves the space to be reminded of our why and to focus on what serves our business the best and not get caught up in the noise and all the distractions. And I think that is setting ourselves up for success as business owners to manage our schedule with ease and flow so that we can achieve what we want to achieve in our business without becoming all consumed with the wrong things and without feeling exhausted and heading down the path to burnout very quickly. All too often, I hear people in their New Year banter when they return to business and they return to the workspace going something like this. Hi, how was your break? Did you have a great holiday? Oh gosh, I bet it feels like a distant memory. And I just heard that, and I was a part of that year in and year out for so long in traditional legal practice. And so I don't want to be a part of that conversation anymore. And I don't want my clients and I don't want business owners to feel that they need to be a part of that conversation because it's true, because the busyness and the burnout and the fatigue kicks in so close upon the return to business or to the workplace in a new year. I would love to hear more conversations about the fabulous holiday that we had, or the wonderful break that we had, or the beautiful restorative reflective period that we had, or whatever that looks like for you. And I would love to hear that continue on more, longer, and more frequently into a new year, quarter after quarter, month after month, so that we're witnessing a culture of flow and ease with our egos in check and our schedules the way we want them, so we can go forward in our business, anchored to our why, serving our purpose. I hope that that's resonated with you, and I hope that this short and sharp episode is just what you needed at this time in the new year as a gentle, kind reminder of what it is that we don't want to bring with us into the new year and how best to position ourselves for success going forward. If you know somebody that you think would also benefit from listening to this episode, I would be ever so grateful if you might share this episode with them so we can help get the podcast into the ears of more business owners. If you haven't already done so, I would be so grateful if you would take a moment to leave a review on Apple Podcasts to help the podcast reach more business owners. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time.